is one of those cases that as I'm researching it, I am like, number one, how did I not hear about this before? Number two, what the heck? So you'll definitely have to let me know in the comments down below if you've heard of this case. So we are going to start by going to England, and we are going to talk about Lindsay Hawker. Lindsay was born to Bill and Julia Hawker in Coventry, West Midlands. She is the middle child of 3 daughters. Her sisters are Lisa and Louise. So Lisa, Lindsay, and Louise. I think that's so cute. Now, Lindsay had this sense for adventure. She just wanted to explore life. So she moved to Japan in October of 2006 to teach English in Tokyo. Now, it is a place called Kowa. It is the Kowa branch of Nova, which was Japan's largest private English conversation school. And she had a lot of credentials to do this. I think it's incredibly brave to move to a country you've never been to start a new life. But Lindsay was schooled at King Henry VIII School. She was an alumna of the University of Leeds, where she studied biology, and she had achieved a first-class honors degree, and she graduated in 2006 before moving to Japan. She was popular and outgoing, and she had considered studying for her master's, but decided to go to Japan to teach English for a year. And when she moved there, she shared her accommodations with 2 other female teachers, one of them from Australia and one of them from Canada. So that brings us to March of 2007. This case really starts on the 24th. It was a Saturday, and Lindsay's family was kind of concerned. It wasn't like her to not be in contact with them. She was constantly in regular contact with them, but she had gone that whole day without speaking to any of them. So she had been there about 6 months at this time, and she was doing well. She enjoyed it, and she just really wanted to do this. So her boyfriend Ryan Garside was going to fly out to meet with her that summer so they could travel around Japan before she returned home. And Lindsay was extremely excited about Japan. As I said, she chose Japan. She knew how safe it was there. She studied the culture. She wanted to be respectful to the people she met when she got there. Her father, Bill, purchased these little bags of lavender to bring to Japan so she could gift them to people she met along the way. Her parents had visited her there in Japan, and they were just struck by how well she fit in there, even after being there for just a couple of months. She spoke Japanese and had a friendly, warm relationship with the locals. Sorry, I had to back up a little before we got to March. So, despite the fact that she lived so far away, she remained in daily contact with her boyfriend, her family, and her friends back home in England. So, when they couldn't get in touch with her that day, March 24th, they got worried. Now, of course, there is a time difference, and initially they thought maybe she was just out somewhere with her friends. It was a Saturday, but she had given private lessons before. The school that she worked for allowed it, but there were rules that she had to follow, and she did this. They must meet in public places and leave a note with the name and the address of the student they were meeting. Lindsay did all of this. She arranged to meet this man at 9 a.m. in a coffee shop that she was familiar with on Saturday morning. She left his name and his address with her roommates at her apartment, and due to this, it was quite easy for the police to trace him. This man was Tatsuya Ichihashi, and he was 29 years old. So, no one knows what happened to Lindsay after this English lesson meeting, so the police want to find Tatsuya to ask him if he knows anything. And they know that from the CCTV footage, she got into a taxi with him to go to his apartment after this English lesson. Police knew that it was his apartment because they had his address from the note that she'd left. So the CCTV footage shows them pulling up to his apartment in the taxi and Lindsay and Tatsuya getting out. The taxi waits a couple of minutes and then it drives off. When police speak to the taxi driver, he informs them that she asked him to wait for her because she was supposed to just run in and run back out. But after 7 minutes, he waited and she did not return and he had to go. So police go to Tatsuya's apartment, and I find this strange, but it is Japan, they don't knock on the door because they believe they don't have probable cause to do so. Okay. At this point, they don't know where she is. They don't know that she's come to any harm. They observe that all the lights are off in Tatsuya's apartment, but they can see movement and they know that he is at home. So they just wait outside for him to come out. And I don't know how long that was, but eventually he comes out and he's got this backpack on and they tell him that they need to speak with him and he runs. He manages to escape the police. They did get his backpack from him and he was like in socks and not shoes. I don't know why he was leaving his apartment without shoes. When the police then enter this apartment after he flees, they make a devastating discovery. There was a bathtub on the balcony of this apartment, and inside there was a mixture of sand and compost soil, which partially concealed Lindsay's body. I'm gonna go a little into her injuries, so if you don't like that, skip ahead a little. She was naked and bound and gagged with plastic ties and scarves. She had bruises and injuries all over her body. Her hair had been shaved off, and it was found in a bag in his apartment. Police were not sure how Lindsay died at this point, but they knew from the extent of her injuries she had suffered a violent end. Lindsay's autopsy confirmed she was murdered and strangled or suffocated to death. Her neck was broken. There were extensive bruises on her body. Almost the entire front of her body and back were covered in marks and bruises. The insides of her legs were covered, and these marks indicated her attack was sustained, and a vicious one, and may have occurred over a 36-hour period. Lindsay's face had large marks and bruises all over it. There were egg-shaped bruises found on the left side of her face, and it was determined that the cause of these was probably a fist. It was believed that the other marks on her body were obtained from falling into or being pushed onto furniture. she had no idea where he was. The apartment where he lived was owned by his parents, and they were a doctor and a dentist, and they did not know where he was. They told the police that they had not heard from him since he had gone on the run. And it was completely horrifying to hear this. I understand that Japanese authorities work differently than the United States, but they printed out life-size cardboard cutouts of Tatsuya to raise awareness of this case and to try and find him. And I cannot imagine, being our family member, being over there, turning a corner, and coming face to face with a life-size cardboard cutout of your daughter's killer. I get it, but it's horrifying. Tell me what you think down below. Do you think that is so crazy? Or do you think it would help solve more cases? What do you think? Alright, so 1 year after Lindsay was murdered, Tatsuya had still not been found. Lindsay's parents flew to Tokyo to help appeal to the people in Japan to help find her killer. Her father said he had this dreadful feeling of helplessness, a horrible feeling of not being able to do anything. He said, "The last time I was here, I banged on the apartment door where she was murdered, and I promised her I would find her killer. I haven't found him yet, but I will not give up." Now, Lindsay's family pleaded for help, and they raised a reward of 10 million yen, which is equal to, from what I looked up, 66,000 pounds, roughly, or $81,500. Crazy. This was for information leading to his arrest, and 8,000 reported sightings were sent in to the police, but it took 2.5 years for them to catch Tatsuya Itsuhashi. He was arrested in November of 2009 in Osaka. He was actually waiting for a ferry. He was waiting to board a ferry to the southern island of Okinawa. A passenger recognized him and told port officials, who in turn told the police. He was wearing a hat, sunglasses, and a mask when he was arrested. Now, this is where this case gets even more crazy to me. Police discovered that as soon as he went on the run, he started to alter his appearance to avoid detection. He, bound up his own nose with a needle and thread to make it narrower. He stayed in Tokyo before traveling to the Ahomori prefecture. I don't know if I said that right. He tried to cut off part of his own lip, the lower lip, to make it thinner using scissors. And he actually had to wait a couple days before the first attempt see it. Before the trial began, the court heard that he wanted to make an admission. He admitted, yes, he was responsible for Lindsay's death, and admitted he assaulted her, but he claimed her death was an accident and that he had not intended to kill her. He said that in order to prevent her from raising her voice, he covered her mouth and put his arms around her neck. Of course, the train is going to come. Sorry, I hope it's not too loud. It was the prosecution's case that Lindsay had suffered a prolonged and violent death and died as a result of sustained pressure to her throat. The court heard that the prosecution did not believe her death was the result of an accident, and that there was nothing to indicate he had attempted to resuscitate her, and he did not call for help, did not ask anyone for help, instead hid her in the bathtub. The prosecution said Lindsay gave Tatsuya an English lesson in the coffee shop and went back to his apartment because he claimed he'd forgotten his wallet and said he had money to pay her at his apartment. She had planned to stay for just a minute until she received her payment, and this was evident by her actions. She had asked the taxi driver to wait for her. But the court heard that almost as soon as she set foot in his apartment, he attacked her. He administered strong blows to her face, and most of the blows inflicted were around her eye. She tried to fight back, so he tied her up so he could assault her. The court heard about the extent of the injuries found on Lindsay and her autopsy results, and said he killed her to hide the fact that he assaulted her. The defense said she died as a result of an accident. Tatsuya himself said he admitted to assaulting her and abandoning her. He told her she died because he tried to stop her from screaming and as a result accidentally suffocated her. Quote, I didn't intend to kill her, but I am responsible for her death. I was the one who scared her and left her dead. I'm very sorry for what I did. Yes, I assaulted her. Yes, I agree that she died because of my actions, but I did not mean to kill her. Only Lindsay and I know what really happened that day, but she can no longer speak for herself because of me, and it is my responsibility to tell the truth throughout this trial. End quote. He claimed he didn't realize that he was putting too much pressure on her neck and did try to revive her. Tatsuya Ichihashi was found guilty. The court believed he intended to murder her when he put pressure on her neck. The presiding judge, Masaya Hata, told the court he assaulted her to satisfy his sexual desire and then tried to cover it up by killing her. He attempted to conceal her murder by abandoning her body. This crime was inexcusable and savage. Tatsuya has repeated irrational, unnatural statements that are contradicted by the evidence. We do not believe he has reflected on his crime from the bottom of his heart. When the court sentenced Tatsuya, Bill Hawker asked them to show him no mercy and for him to receive the death penalty. The court declined to do this, but he was sentenced to life in prison. They said that they opted not to give him the death penalty because he had no criminal record and that he was not a criminal by nature. They stated he was still young and perhaps he has the chance to make a new start or be corrected. Under Japanese law, Tatsuya Ichihashi will have to serve a minimum of 10 years before being eligible for parole. After his sentencing, Bill spoke to the media, and he also details the changes he made to his face, from his own cutting and slicing actions to his 2 plastic surgeries. The book has sold over 100,000 copies, and it was a success in Britain. In fact, so much so that they made a movie out of it called I Am Ichihashi, Journal of a Murderer. Tatsuya even offered all the profits from the book and the film to Lindsay's family, but they refused. Production company Sedek International said the film did not praise Ichihashi or justify his wrongdoings, but her family said they were not consulted and they would never have given consent for this film to have been made. And they want to remind people that Tatsuya Ichihashi is a convicted assaultist and murderer. Her family considered this movie and book to be extremely distasteful and an insult to Lindsay's memory. The film producer, Totiaki Nakazawa, said, "We have not the least intention to insult the victim or her family. We did carefully produce this film as not to dishonor them. The focus of this film is on the internal struggle of a criminal who committed such a horrible crime. It describes the process of how his fear and sense of guilt pushed him into a corner psychologically, and the result that he could not get away from it in the end." Tatsuya Ichihashi has appealed his sentence, but the High Court has upheld it until now. Now, I cannot with this case. First of all, this case reminded me of like a crazy thriller movie that you just cannot believe is actually happening. I think it sucks that she did everything that she was supposed to do and still died. This man had a girlfriend. It may have, I don't know Japanese customs, it may have been strange for them to be sleeping together before they were married. I don't know how that works. But she did everything right and was still killed. And she loved it there. She felt safe there. She chose it because she felt safe there. She was just doing basically her job. And I just wish that the taxi driver had maybe gone upstairs. Like maybe she didn't pay him or something, and he'd gone upstairs to get his money and maybe saved her or prevented part of this attack or something. And I hope that they don't feel guilty, because it is of course not their fault in any way that they did not do that. They're not responsible for the lives of other people. It is completely crazy to me that this man went to these extreme lengths to do this to his face. I am hopefully gonna have Sean put like a picture of it in. I'm gonna use it in the thumbnail too, but I mean, if you Google Tatsuya Ichihashi and you look at the difference in his face, it is completely crazy to me that a member of the public still identified him. He looks so different. I cannot imagine like taking a scalpel to your own face. Number one, not having, I mean, his doctor's a dad. Dad's a doctor and his mom's a dentist, so maybe he has some knowledge. But as a medical assistant myself, I wouldn't know how to do that. I might have access to numbing agents, but still, I mean, what kind of cojones does it take to do that to yourself? But I guess when you're on the run for murder, you have to make yourself brave somehow. But I am glad that the police were able to get his backpack from him, because I imagine that his passport and things were in there, and that is why he was unable to